Hey everybody, and welcome to another CollectionDX video review. Today we're checking out Shin 1 OVA version. This is the Super Robot Chogokin release. And so this mecha, being the OVA version, is from the Robo Armageddon OVA series. So without further ado, let's check this guy out. So first let's talk about the sculpt and looks of this robot. The Shin 1 in this iteration is very faithful to the design of the robot in Robo Armageddon. It's not perfect. Bandai did take a couple liberties with the design. For example, this little indent in the waist should actually be a cutout that shows you the armor underneath. But since the abdomen plate right there is removable, that's probably why they decided to make this an indent in the waist armor rather than a cutout, because otherwise it would just show nothing. There'd be a gap there. So that's one thing worth noting. Also, the hip joints right here, those aren't actually visible in the robot in the Shin 1 in Robo Armageddon. So I'm guessing that due to the way Bandai wanted this robot to move, they probably had to put those in, because otherwise these thighs would actually be all the way up here, and that really wouldn't work very well for movement. As you'll see later, these flared bits will touch the inside thighs, so I'm guessing they added those joints to allow the robot to move more freely and more like it does in the show. Besides that, another thing worth noting is the fact that the head looks a bit small, as you can see. Shin 1 does have a small head, but it seems like Bandai made this one like one size too small. That's like the first thing I noticed when I opened this toy up, is the fact that it has a small head. It doesn't look super horrible because those fins on the top do give it some extra size, but the actual head itself looks small. But other than that, the Shin 1 looks very much like it does in Robo Armageddon. As for the diecast content, with this Super Robot Chogokin release, like some of the other ones, it's pretty much just left to the lower part of the legs, and that gives the toy a good balance, and it allows Bandai to call it a Chogokin because it has some metal. And of course, one of the key points of the Super Robot Chogokin line is the fact that these robots have a lot of articulation. At the hip, we have a nice ball joint, and it moves fairly easily up and down. Forward and back, it's a little hard, but it'll move. If you move it up too much, the thigh armor, that flared piece of the thigh armor, will touch the waist. But luckily, there is a thigh swivel, so you can move that around a bit, and you can clear the part of the waist armor if you wanted to move the leg up, like so. At the knee, we have a nice ratchety joint, which you heard a little bit earlier when I was moving around the thigh. Moves quite a bit. Let me get that out of the way. And you can even move it into the back of the leg. And this is because there is a collapsible panel right there that goes in when the leg gets that far. So very cool. You can even make him kneel like so, thanks to those collapsible joints. At the ankles, we have a ball joint, which at first look would seem to be pretty restricted by the bottom of the legs. As you can see, not much movement, but luckily you can pull out the joint, and then you can move the feet a lot more freely. You can rock it back and forth also, so a nice little feature that allows a lot more movement of the feet. At the midsection, you actually have a couple different joints. There is a ball joint right in here, and then in the back you can see there is a hinge. And the cool thing about this combination is that you can get a lot of movement from that part of the midsection. You can bend the robot forward. Whoop! Almost fell over. You can bend them over, and he can perform a proper bow, as any proper Japanese robot should know how to do. You can also move it backwards substantially, like so. So it's got a nice range of motion, both back and forward. Now, one thing I don't like about the midsection, both front and the back, is that while it does have nice articulation, when you move it forward, you get to see all the insides. I mean, that's pretty bad looking. I mean, not that most people are gonna display him, bowing, unless you find a greater robot that he would bow to, but Besides the point, I don't like the fact that you can see all the innards. I mean, it's cool so you can see how the robot works, but besides that, doesn't look good for display purposes. And also, as you may have noticed, when you move the midsection back, you get a gap. Not a big a gap, but you can still see some of the insides. There's like a panel in there, and if you look close enough, you can also see the ball joint right there. So, a nitpick I have, maybe they should have engineered a way where there's a little bit more plastic there that would have covered those parts of the midsection and made the robot look a lot more solid. Not just like, hey, it's a toy, we have to see the insides. So, that's one of my nitpicks with this design. At the head, we have a ball joint that swivels up and down also. And being a ball joint, you can move it from side to side. Even do a full 360 with the head. Now, another neat thing about the head is that it's got this cool little connection where you can lift it up and push it back. And so that way, your getter can actually look forward when it is flying through space. So, very cool little addition. At the shoulder, both inside of the body and inside the arm, you have these two balls. And you would think that they would act like ball joints, but they actually don't. The one inside of the body, moves forward and back, acts like a panel. And the one inside of the body has a cut in the center that's attached to the peg. And this allows the arm to go up and down. And then the arm can move a full 360 degrees thanks to a ratchet joint that the ball is attached to. Another cool thing about the joint at the shoulder is the fact that you can extend it out a bit just like you could with the feet by popping it out. And then right about where the robot's bicep would be, there is another ball joint right above the ring that you can move a bit. Not a whole lot, but it does allow the arm to move a bit more. And moving on, the elbow has a peg that goes in through the ring and into the upper part of the arm. And this allows the arm to move 360 degrees. The elbow peg comes out a bit, as you see, because the arms can actually be detached. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So you also have a nice elbow joint right here that allows the arm to move quite a bit. Only thing is, though, I've noticed sometimes when this part of the arm touches on the ring and you get some leverage going, it will cause the peg on the elbow to come out of the hole. Not all the way, but enough to where you'll notice it. So you just got to pop that guy back in. And now, since we're talking about the elbow, let's go over the fact that these parts are detachable. You can take off the ring, and you can take off the lower part of the arm. Now, right now, it doesn't serve a purpose. Maybe down the road, maybe there's going to be an accessory pack or something else that you can do with it. So at the back of the toy, we have a slot for attaching the wings of the Shin Getter 1. And so this is pretty easy to do. Just take the wings, bam, you are done. As for the articulation of the wings, they can be rotated 360 degrees that way because they are on a ball swivel. And also, they can be lifted up and brought back down thanks to the swivel on the ball. So you can get all kinds of good range with the wings. Move them down a bunch and move them up and all that kind of good stuff. So Shin Getter 1 comes with a fair number of hands. He's got weapon holding hands. He's got one hand with the fingers laid out, a lot more than this set of hands. And he's got two fists. And obviously the two set of slightly splayed hands that we have right now on the robot. So that is the hand count for this release. But that's not all. We also have one of Shin Getter's weapons. Unfortunately, it's not the Getter Tomahawk. Instead, we get Shin Getter 1's big ol' Scythe. The blade on the Scythe is a nice shiny silver color, while the rest of the Scythe, the handle and the rest of the body, is pretty much just molded in that gray. While the blade looks good, I'm not a big fan of the rest of the Scythe. It looks very plasticky, but other than that, it's nice, it's big. It's a cool weapon for your Shin Getter 1. I would have preferred if the Getter Tomahawk was included. And so another extra that you get with the release of the Shin Getter 1 is this little gray piece that you see right there, and it's attached to the arm of a stand. And basically this is just so you can attach it to a stand. It clips on the back of the Shin Getter 1, like so. Of course the toy stands well enough on its own, but being able to attach this guy to a stand allows you to get a little bit more creative with the way you pose your figure. So, neat little extra in case you want to pose him in various ways. In this case, his leg is off the ground, so the stand allows him to stand and not fall over. As I mentioned earlier in the review, this front piece in the midsection does come off. You simply slide off the panel, pop it out of a couple pegs that it's on, and then you put this guy on. And there you have the alternate midsection for the Shin Getter 1. And of course this extra panel that goes over the front midsection of the Shin Getter 1 is for when it performs the Getter Beam. So very cool. No effect parts with this release to simulate the Getter Beam. And so that's pretty much it for the extras that are included with the Shin Getter 1. Not a lot, but a decent amount. Maybe not what I would have wanted out of this release, but it does okay. So that is it for this review. This has been Sentai Seiya with CollectionDX. Thanks everybody for watching. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe.